Okay, thank
Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to session 2 of advocacy training. Thank you for your patience as we get started. Having a couple of small technical difficulties today, but that's okay. I hope you are all doing well. Wherever in the world you may be, whatever time of day it is for you. But I'm really excited for our session today. I hope you guys are excited as well. If you were not able to join us last weekend, session 1 was all about stopping deep sea mining and implementing a global moratorium. And that translates very well to our session today about the High Seas Treaty and what that ratification process looks like. So I'm very excited to have our 2 speakers with us today. I'm going to give them a minute to settle in. We'll get started very soon here. I know we're a little tiny bit behind schedule, but that's okay. But for the next minute or so, go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat. Let us know where you're from, and let us know your favorite ocean animal. I think last session on Saturday, it was what was your favorite body of water? Let's go with ocean animal today. We'll use that as our icebreaker. So we'll get started in just a minute. The chat is disabled. That was totally my bad. Let me make sure that that is enabled. And you should be good now. Okay, there we go. All right. As you guys are starting to introduce yourselves in the chat, which is now enabled, again, thank you all so much for joining us for advocacy training. This is the last session of this iteration of advocacy training. This is our first time doing a miniature session. Again, if you missed the first session, you can go ahead and watch that recording on the World Ocean Day YouTube channel. But we are, again, very excited to have our wonderful speakers today. So again, keep going ahead and introducing yourselves in the chat. I see Jace from Atlanta. Favorite animal is a Dumbo octopus. We have Layla from Hawaii. My favorite animal is the manta ray as well. Eduardo from Ecuador. We got blue whales, Canada, humpback whales, Trinidad and Tobago, thresher sharks, New Zealand, leatherback turtles. Awesome. Good diversity of geographic representation, but also species representation. Love to see it. I'm going to just go ahead and run through our agenda for today. So again, just a quick little introduction of the program and of our speakers. We're going to go over what the High Seas Treaty is, why it's important. And then we have a couple of discussion questions for our speakers as well. And then throughout the session, if you've been with us for advocacy training before, you know that it is very much welcome and encouraged to go ahead and leave any questions that you have in the Q&A throughout the discussion, and then we will we'll save time for Q&A at the end. And then we have just a couple of announcements as well. But first things first, I want to say a huge thank you once again to our awesome speakers. We have Leneka Rhoden, who is among many other things, the Caribbean Regional Coordinator for the High Seas Alliance. She is very, very, very well versed in international protection of the oceans. I will leave her bio up here for just a minute, but mainly, Leneka, thank you so much for joining us. Again, thank you for committing to this after Hurricane Beryl, and hope that you are able to come back stronger than ever. And we also have Julia Schutz Vega from the Nippon Foundation Ocean Voices program, also incredibly knowledgeable in High Seas Treaty law and general ocean protection. Both of our speakers today have very, very long and impressive resumes, and I'm so excited to have both of you here. We really, really appreciate you joining us today. So Before we get started, Leneka and Julia, I will pass it off to both of you so you can introduce yourselves before we jump into this first question. So either one of you who wants to go first, you can go ahead.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm Leneka Rhoden. I'm hoping that you can hear me. My internet connection is a bit poor because we're still without light, but I'm the Caribbean Regional Coordinator at the High Seas Alliance. I have also just this week been representing the Sustainable Oceans at the International Seabed Authority.
Leneka, it seems like your audio has cut out just a little bit. Maybe if you stay off of video and just use audio, that might work, so that at least we can hear you. Oh, we might have a technical issue there. Okay, I'll give her a second. Julia, if you would like to introduce yourself, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you, Laura, for the kind invitation. It's a really pleasure to be here today. Currently, I'm a PhD candidate at Nova School of Law here in Portugal, where I'm based. I'm also a visiting fellow in the Ocean Voices program in the University of Edinburgh. And I had the pleasure to integrate the Brazilian delegation during the BBNJ negotiations. And I was like particularly focusing on genetic resources and transfer marine technology, capacity building measures. So I hope I can, like share a few things with you today. And I think that's it. Thank you, Laura. And hope like Leneka comes, like join us.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I hope that her internet is able to keep up today. If not, it's okay. I understand and I appreciate her efforts regardless. But yeah, thank you again for joining us. And I think first question right off the bat, when we talk about the High Seas Treaty, this acronym BBNJ comes up all the time. And sometimes it can get a little bit confusing. So Julia, if you could just explain to us what the BBNJ is, what that stands for, and then what the High Seas Treaty actually is. What does that treaty do to protect our ocean?
Yeah, this is like I think the hot topic of the moment, law of the sea, ocean governance. And the BBNJ is like the new implementing agreement under UNCLOS. It's the UN Convention for the Law of the Sea. So 20 years, I think around like 20 years ago, like the international community understood that there was like a part of the ocean that was like without protection, and which means that the BBNJ like came, like to fulfill this gap. So, and what is about? Is about conservation and sustainable use of biological diversity and in areas, international areas. So this is like a big, is a little bit more complex that, like talk about domestic law, because we need like a consensus among all the states. So the BBNJ, like to conserve and use sustainably like this biodiversity, they needed to achieve this common ground about what they should do, what would be the measures to protect this biodiversity. So it was a really long process, as I said, like around 20 years when the first debate came into these international lawmaking processes. And the last June, the states adopted the final text of the BBNJ. Sorry for being so long, but I think it's like my favorite topic in law of the sea. So I can, like hours and hours.
You know what? It's all good. I love it if you take up time, and I could listen to, just in general, people who talk about what they love all day, but this in particular, I have no worries with you going on about it, because that's what we're here to do. So yeah, so it is the biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction, and this map I just kind of inserted in here. It is from 2020, so it is a slightly outdated, so I apologize for that. I couldn't find like a better visual example quickly. But as we can see here, the high seas are anything outside of the 200-mile exclusive economic zone of the coast of all of the country. So there's a lot of different things that happen on the high seas. And what does the question here that I'm asking is, how does this piece of legislation actually go about creating that conservation? What does it do to protect these places? And does it have specific sections that cover certain issues like deep sea mining, for example, or bottom trawl fishing, or that kind of thing, other types of industry? Can you go into like a little bit more detail about those components of the treaty?
Hi, can you hear
Oh,
me?
yeah. Can you hear us?
Yes. Hi, yeah, I can hear you. So are you able to hear me clearly still?
Yeah, we're good now. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, awesome. So I'd like to take a go at that question if that's
Yeah, go
fine.
for it. Go for it.
I'll just brief and then I'll hand it back over. Okay. So the BBNJ, it covers areas such as requiring an environmental impact assessment for any activities that should happen in the areas beyond national jurisdiction, in the high seas. It also covers marine protected areas, and within the treaty itself, once you're a signatory to the treaty, you'll get access to these types of tools to kind of improve how you're able to protect your marine areas. And this is very important, especially when you look at the 30 by 30 agreement and the goal, you know, that whole international goal that the European Union will set out to achieve. And the BBNJ also covers things such as the transfer of knowledge and capacity building, because there is one of the core tenets in the BBNJ is the fact that, you know, it promotes the protection of marine genetic resources. And, you know, that I guess is intricately linked to deep sea mining. And of course, I'll just hand it over to, are you still able to hear me?
Yeah, go for it. Julia, do you have anything that you would like to add? Or I think Leneka may have frozen. She froze like right at the end of her response, but she was, I think, passing it off to you, Julia.
I think I can add maybe because you said something about like bottom fishing closed areas, and not about this specifically, but there was like a huge debate during the BBNJ negotiations about like including or not fishing activities. And at the very end of the negotiations, the states decided, for example, part 2, like marine genetic resources, does not apply like any of these provisions of this part, not apply for fishing activities. So this is something really controversial from like there is like a huge debate in academia about it. So just like to mention it, because I know that a lot of people studying about IUU fishing, for example, and unfortunately or fortunately, depending on like which side you are, the BBNJ does not include the fishing activities.
That's a really good point. And you know, that is part of a larger conversation, and it's definitely something I would like to explore. I don't know if we have time to explore like both sides of that today, but it is definitely something I personally am interested in learning more about, and also that I think is very interesting part of this broader conversation. So moving forward to more of the policy side of things. So we're talking about ratification. There's like a whole process for these international treaties to actually get implemented. And there's a lot of different steps that all of the nation states that are participating have to go through to make sure that it is actually a legal document that they are following. So I know that it's kind of a broad question because that process can look slightly different from state to state, but generally speaking, what is the process to actually implement something like the High Seas Treaty?
Well, thank you for the question, Laura. I think it's really important. And I was like, actually, I opened a few scientific papers here in my computer about these topics. And if you don't mind, I can share in the chat. So if there is someone interested in going like deeply about this scientific background about the BBNJ, but specifically about it, it's important to say that the like last June, they stated agreed with the final text. And I think it's around like 91 or 92 states adopted. But now there is like this domestication of the international agreement into the country. So for example, I'm from Brazil. So we have a lot of steps to fulfill, you know, into the Congress, the Senate, you know, like to approve the text in Portuguese, for example, you know, and then we can deposit our ratification, our declaration under the UN Dualos, for example. And until now, we just have 9 countries that already ratified the BBNJ. And what is the problem here? First of all, the BBNJ established that we need 60 countries to put into force the agreement. So we are far away of achieve this number. And there is another paper that Blasiak and Jouffret, I think it's the co-author, but they made a study like comparing, for example, UN Fish Stock Agreement, the agreement of Part 11, UNCLOS, a lot of environmental treaties, and for sure related to ocean. They made the comparison between the date of adoption and the date of ratification. So for example, the average was like more than 2,000 days to enter into force. So this is like far away. As I said at the beginning, was like 20 years, you know, to achieve consensus. And now like how many days or how many years we need to effectively start the implementation of the BBNJ agreement. So I think it's a long process, but like this kind of action that you were doing, for example, leading, you know, this is really interesting because clarifying people this like ocean literacy about the BBNJ, the knowledge.
Yeah, very much so. And
Yeah,
Leneka,
and I totally agree with that.
go ahead, Leneka.
Yeah, I was just saying I agree with it. And not to jump the gun, but this is one of the reasons why NGOs are so critical to the whole process of promoting ratification, because a part of ratification is where stakeholder engagement and stakeholder consultation is very critical. And so it's so important that young people are made aware of what this agreement is, what it sets out to do, and how it will benefit them in the long run. And so, you know, NGOs, they play such a crucial role in raising awareness, and they will provide a lot of support in terms of when it comes on to implementing. But I guess we'll get to that question later down.
Yeah, I love that you added that, Leneka. That is a very important part of this process. Yes, we will be talking about how youth can get involved and take that action a little bit in like a few minutes from here. But it is, I like that you brought this up as a part of this question, because that is very much integral into actually getting this to happen. Julia, go ahead.
Oh, I don't want to cut, you know, like Leneka, because it's like amazing what she just said. But I just want to raise also that there is an article, I think it's like, I think now it's like 68. It's like a provisional application of the treaty. So there is this maneuver into the BBNJ agreement that, for example, I can adopt and also submit a declaration. And from that day, you know, from now on that you submit this declaration, the agreement starts to count on you, you know. So this would be something to accelerate the process, but nobody's using it. I think like the first person that I saw like mentioning with it was Vito De Lucia, and you know, was really, you know, oh, okay, there is something, but nobody's using it. So yeah.
Very good point as well. And I will, you guys both kind of already touched on this, but I do want to just show this map so we have kind of a visual. I'm a visual learner, so I like these kinds of things. I just took this screenshot off of the actual High Seas Alliance ratification tracker on their website. So at any point in time, you can go to the High Seas Alliance website and see where we're at in this process. But we have 91 signed, and as Julia mentioned, we only have 8 ratified so far. So we do have quite a bit more work to do. We have 91 signed, which is great, but again, we need that 60, we need to hit that 60 mark for ratification for it to actually move ahead. So we're moving in the right direction, but we need to make sure that we are going a little bit faster if we can. So now to kind of touch on the question that Leneka just referenced, was the NGOs and civil society and just members of the public engaging in this process. Leneka, you kind of already shared why it's so important, but I would also like to talk a little bit more about, you know, what do those actions actually look like? Like, what are these groups doing that is so important in this process? And then in a little bit, we'll talk about more about how young people can get involved in this process. But if you both have any specific like anecdotes or things that you have experienced in your own journey throughout this kind of work, let's hear it. I'm just very interested in this.
Okay, I can share very briefly before my internet goes. So essentially, we have to look at the fact that NGOs have very expansive networks. So, you know, usually NGOs are associations of specific groupings of people. So, for example, in the Caribbean, there is the Caribbean Regional Fisheries Mechanism that covers all the fisheries association that trickles down to the everyday fisherman that you'll see, you know, bringing up his boats on the shoreline. Those people are critical stakeholders, very important to have the conversation with. And so when NGOs get involved, they help to spread the word, and also to ensure that these fishers or these people who are on the ground, they understand what the BBNJ is and the role that they can play to support its implementation, which it then helps in the higher level process, because then the government is now able to essentially, you know, tick that box to say, okay, you know, this people are aware of the BBNJ agreement, because that is very much important. I'll share an experience with you. There is a regional group in the Caribbean known as Canary. They essentially have a membership of quite a number of NGOs across the region, and they would have hosted a BBNJ workshop to raise awareness, discuss the critical role that NGOs play in the whole BBNJ process. And what was very significant about that grouping is the fact that, you know, some of these NGOs are very specialized in the sense that they have marine protected areas. In the Caribbean, a lot of our fish sanctuaries are run by NGOs. And so the fact that they'll be getting access to tools to improve the management of these areas through the BBNJ is something of significance to them. And so I mean, that's just one example of how it is that NGOs are making a difference in terms of just having those kinds of meetings. Another example would be when NGOs connect with academia to have discussions around now, promulgating careers in ocean, because when the BBNJ comes into force, through achieving its 60th ratification by next year, which I know will happen because the ratifications are coming in. Cuba just recently ratified, Mexico ratified, and there are quite a number of Pacific islands that will soon ratify as well. And the EU has signed on. And so we're just patiently waiting, but they will come. And so careers in ocean will start to, I mean, it has already been on the rise, but can you just imagine the amount of open calls that will now become opportunities for young people to get involved in protecting the ocean, because every organization will now need to ensure that their capacity is extended so that they're able to effectively utilize those tools, effectively participate in marine research and all that will come, so that they can protect the high seas and benefit from, all of that. So yeah, thank you. I'll hand over.
Yeah, Julia, do you have anything to add to that? Thank you, Leneka, for that beautiful, beautiful introduction. I wish I could have I'm going to figure out if I can get the transcript from that because I just love what you said so much. But Julia, if you have anything else you want to add, go for it.
For sure. I think it's amazing, the work that Leneka and others make during not only the BBNJ, but also now the plastic treaty negotiations, ISA sessions. So this is really important. And I'm from Brazil. It's super complex to get some funding to attend the negotiations or to go everywhere. It's super difficult to get that. And after I started being part of a DOSI initiative and also Ocean Voices program in Edinburgh. I started okay, I'm not only part of really good network. So for example, I was integrating the Brazilian delegation, but sometimes, but which means genetic resources, the diplomat saying, and I say, okay, I need to get some info. I need to collect some information and to build an argument really good for Brazil, CLAM. And I remember through DOSI, through Ocean Voices, High Seas Alliance, Daniel particularly was amazing friend that I made during the negotiations. Everybody working together to help us, so I was just raising my hand and someone was really close to me to not only help me, I'm just exposing my experience, but I saw with everyone, supporting everyone to make a real and robust treaty. And I think we made it. We just let's be optimists like Leneka, and next year probably in this get this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think both of you just added something so beautiful to this conversation because, this is our miniature version of advocacy training. And usually in the 4-week sessions, we talk about all of these kind of big picture advocacy topics. And these 2 sessions are really specific about these 2 issues, deep sea mining and high seas treaty. But it all comes down to this sort of sense of community care, right? We can talk about taking action on local levels, national levels, international levels. This big picture stuff like the High Seas Treaty, this is community care on that global scale. And like Leneka, to the point that you made earlier about sharing the resources once the treaty comes into force, that is a huge part of that. And then I'll also draw a line to one of the things that Daniel said, he was our speaker for the first session of this, was that we are, I'm going to I'm going to not say exactly how he said it, but it was so good. We're the first generation to really experience the worst impacts of the climate crisis, and one of the last, if not the last generation to be able to do anything about it in order to like mitigate the worst of those effects. And, you know, that's part of why it's so important that we have these discussions, because again, it's taken 20 years to get the negotiations to happen. And I just saw something this morning about the deep sea mining negotiations that wrapped up. And, you know, it took 20 years to get to that point as well, because they have to literally negotiate like every single word in the legislation. It takes a really long time. So, you know, taking this ball and running it down the field is kind of our generational responsibility, I feel like. So, Leneka, I think I may have slightly interrupted you. Were you going to add anything else?
Oh, yes, I was. I was actually going to say that you know, there are a lot of things that will come when the treaty comes into force. And one of that is, for example, the fact that they want to establish a clearinghouse mechanism. And so NGOs, in their role in terms of building capacity and raising awareness, they help the key stakeholders to understand what will come with this treaty so that they can be better prepared.
I'm not sure if we still have Leneka, but I
Oh, yes, that was,
there you go.
yeah,
Okay.
that was the addition.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good. I'm glad. I think there's also a slight delay with our transmission here. So if I interrupt you, I very much apologize. But yes, thank you for adding that. Again, another very critical component to this discussion. I also see a couple of awesome questions in the chat. I just want to remind everyone, because I don't want to get these questions lost in the chat. If you do have a question, try to use the Q&A feature, because I do want to get to some of these questions. I don't want to forget. But this next component, this is kind of the crux of the whole conversation, is what in this conversation that we're having, what is the actual role of youth? You know, we talked about the literacy component, having these kinds of discussions that kind of goes into how do we prepare this generation and generations down the line to take action within this global ocean protection kind of world. But right now, currently in this moment, realistically, what does that actually look like? What are the specific actions that young people can be taking? How can we, you know, on our
I
local,
think
national,
what Julia
level.
had said, it was a very good addition, the fact that when she got involved in the different organizations. Are you hearing me? Just checking. Yeah?
Yes, I
Yeah,
agree.
go ahead.
Okay. I was saying that what Julia had shared earlier with when she joined DOSI and all those other organizations, I think that kind of thing is very important to preparing young people for playing a critical role in ocean protection and ocean governance, giving young people a seat at the table so that they can experience what it's like to take part in different negotiations. It's something that will help them to develop so that their capacity and the standard and the quality of their delivery can improve with that kind of experience and exposure. Because ocean protection is something that will, of course, be a collaborative effort. I think it's something that is intergenerational, because you know when it comes on when I speak to about intergenerational in the Caribbean, for example, we are losing our indigenous communities because the younger people are being influenced by pop culture, and so the indigenous groups tend to be a lot of the older folks, and so it's so important that we also try to learn from them. And so when we create spaces for young people to be able to collaborate and learn from those kinds of communities so that they're able to amplify, to take what they would have learned and amplify it in such a way, because I feel like young people, and I speak from experience because I do have experience working in the government as well. Whenever we have young people on our team, they seem to be not only more passion driven, but they're very innovative and creative in terms of how they deliver anything at all. And I think in terms of when we have any discussions about ocean protection, ocean governance, the role of young people cannot be undermined, because it's the young people who are willing to do the deeper dives. It is the young people who are willing to push whatever campaign that needs to be pushed further, in terms of being creative with getting the message out on social media or to the other groupings of people. It tends to be young people who are able to come up with that kind of input.
Very
And
much.
so in preparing them, we really need to create so that they can learn their capacities. We can feed into their capacities. You know, we cannot not have a seat for them at the table. You know, one of the prime ministers in the Caribbean is the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis. He said, is Dr. Drew, he said that, you know, if young people, if they don't have a seat at the table, then it means that they are on the menu.
That's a very good quote. I really like that, Leneka. Thank you. And I think that you pointed out that intergenerational cooperation, I feel like, is one of the most underrated components of youth advocacy work in this space. Because like you said, the young people, we need to make sure that we are learning from our elders, and we are really holding fast to the roots of the cultures that are, you know, like you mentioned, are kind of being eroded by modernity. And it's so important that we hold very dearly onto that generational and traditional knowledge. But then the other side of the coin is that the older folks also need to be open to all of these creative ideas that young people have, and really allowing them to take the stage and to bring these initiatives forward. So Leneka, thank you very much for adding that. Julia, do you have anything that you want to say?
Well, after this amazing speech, I don't have that much, but I think one thing really important, because I remember, for example, like during the BBNJ negotiations, High Seas Alliance especially, they brought a lot of like young people to be around. And it was like amazing, because like simple things like during the daily routine of the negotiations, you know. So for example, I remember like to see like senior diplomats with a lot of, you know, like disposable like glasses, bottles and everything. Sorry, for the opposites, like the young people with like, you know, like good things, and like senior diplomats, you know, like just making a lot of like garbage and trash around. And was like, so it was kind of like, you know, I saw like a few people talking about it, you know, like, okay, like look at their behavior, you know, they are like always like thinking about like how impact like lasts like during our routine. So this is like just a simple thing, but I remember it was like something really meaningful, like during those days, you know, like sneaking out and see like how people were, you know, like their postures like during the negotiation. So I think it's a really good impact, and like super simple.
Definitely. I love that anecdote, and definitely something that I've seen in similar conferences as well. But yeah, I think that is, I just love this conversation. It's so meaningful to me personally and professionally, and I'm sure all of you can relate, whether you're watching this live right now in this moment or watching this recording later. I think that all of us kind of have like an itch in the back of our head that we like want to contribute to something bigger than ourselves. If you're here, if you're watching this right now, you've already taken that first step, and that's good enough for today. You know, what's the next thing? The next best thing that you can do tomorrow, you know? And on that note, I actually do want to transition to the Q&A. We have about 15 minutes left, and there was one question I saw come up in the Q&A here that did relate to another question that I was talking about earlier in the chat. Let me find it. Yes, so earlier we had Jace ask, going back to more of the nitty-gritty policy side of the BB&J, if 60 nations ratify, what are some ways besides NGOs to see it used effectively to avoid problems that, for example, the Paris Agreement face, where the goals are not being met? And I love that question because we also have Eduardo's question here in the Q&A that is also about enforcement and accountability, what specifically young people can do to realize that enforcement on these types of international or national policies, and what are some resources that we can use to take action. So on the side of enforcement, that's actually a big part of this that we have not touched on so far. So either one of you have anything you want to add to that side of things? Go ahead.
I'll just come in briefly again. You know, one of the things that I'll say about the BB&J, having worked with it so intimately, is once it comes into force, there are a number of committees. In fact, work has already begun to set up these committees with experts across the world, trying to make it as representative as possible. But there are committees that will be in place to essentially support its implementation and enforcement.
Actually, she got my thoughts, because I think it's really, you know, like, for example, me as a student, it's always again and again about implementing, for example, part 14 of UNCLOS. And now we have this operationalization of the CB and TMT framework. So this is like amazing, these committees that were created in the BB&J.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear more about these committees. Can you give a little more detail on what the action steps actually look like as far as enforcement is concerned? And Leneka, I hear you trying to go, so go ahead.
Yeah, I was just about to say that just to probably share here, since I've been attending the ISA meetings, the fact of the matter is, you know, the BB&J is widely respected in the international arena by all the diplomats, the expert negotiators. You know, the BB&J is so well developed, and it has all the right tools. It covers all the areas that other agreements would have failed to do. And so, you know, I just want for the young people to understand and appreciate that in terms of the protection of the high seas, the BB&J agreement is literally here for that. And in terms of the whole enforcement, this is why we are having discussions with civil society, we're having discussions with the government, we're having discussions with academia. We're trying to ensure that all the key stakeholders who need to play a critical role, so we're not only touching high level, but we're going down to the grassroots so that everyone can play a role in safeguarding the ocean, right? I guess the different committees and the action steps.
That's wonderful, Leneka. Thank you for adding that in there. And yeah, again, the grassroots level, the bottom up solutions versus top down solutions. It's all necessary, and it's so exciting to hear somebody who, both of you who have been so intimately involved in this process, be so hopeful about it. It makes me very excited, and I'm very happy to be a part of this conversation too. It's just very inspiring. So we have some other awesome questions in here. I'll go in order now. We have Alexis asked, where in the grand scheme of things can we have the most tangible impact in helping to protect our marine spaces? Do we want to aim to work in NGOs or within the government itself? Now, that's a really interesting question, because also, Leneka, I remember you mentioned earlier talking about careers in ocean conservation. And I feel like, I don't know about you guys, but as somebody who works with young people in the conservation space, I am constantly asked the question, do I have to be a marine biologist to help save the ocean? And I will personally tell you the answer is no. But if you can give us a little more insight into where those little focus areas are that are really, really high impact outside of, you know, I guess marine biology specifically, but should we be focusing more on NGOs or policy, or what are your guys' opinions on that?
Should I go maybe? Well, first of all, I agree 100% that we don't need to be a marine biologist or specifically something. I think the Ocean Decade, for example, gave us so many, you know, like doors to open and to explore. So, for example, there are a lot of people working on ocean literacy. So they are communicators, you know, they know how to communicate, how to, for example, Leneka is like the best one, you know, like highlighting the amazing things that BBNJ just made it, you know. So I think because like the ocean nowadays is not only, is not like, it's not playing just a role in this environmental process that you are involved with, but it's like a major actor in like saving the planet, you know. So ocean nowadays is not only like important for us that we are somehow connected with the ocean because of our studies or work or whatever, you know, interesting, but it's something that always when you turn on the TV, the ocean is like playing something, you know, like related to commercial, international trades or whatever, you know, like everything, it's about ocean nowadays. So well, explore like what you like and what you can share with the society, because at the end now everybody wants to do something, wants to have, you know, like one, like a finger print in this process, like to saving our planet.
Yeah, Julia, that is a beautiful, beautiful sentiment. And I really appreciate it. I share this, I feel like almost every public advocacy training session that we have. Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson's climate Venn diagram, I think, is completely applicable to the ocean work as well. What you were saying about how, you know, we kind of take the ocean for granted, whether you live in a coastal region or not. If you live in a landlocked area, more likely to take it for granted. But, you know, I don't blame you. It's out of sight, out of mind, right? But that's kind of the whole thing. And so integrating, thinking about the ocean and thinking about the planet as a whole in all of our, you know, day-to-day lives is a huge, huge component of this. Leneka, do you have anything you want to add to this question? Leneka, can you hear us?
Hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, now we're good.
Okay, awesome. So I was saying, Laura, that you touched on a very critical point, because I get it a lot, you know, the high seas seem to be a bit abstract to a lot of people because it's not something that they interact with on a day-to-day. But if you do online shopping, then think about how your goods get to your home, right? Most times, if you are based in the Caribbean, for example, most of what we shop online would either come from China or the United States. It has to travel across the high seas, especially if it's coming from China, right? When you think about some of the fish that you eat, for example, the tuna, the salmon, those tend to come from the high seas, right? When you think even about the medicine that you take when you are sick, the vaccine that cured that would have protected you from COVID-19, or those other vaccines that you may have to take depending on the region that you're from. Sometimes, in most cases, those medicines are developed from resources, marine resources that were extracted from the high seas. And so, it might be something abstract, but it is home. It is right where you are. And for a lot of these ocean states, when I first joined the call, I heard somebody mention the turtle. A lot of these turtles, they migrate across the high seas. They spend most of their lives out in the high seas, and then they come up on the shores to lay their eggs. And for a lot of these small ecosystems, that is a livelihood. Just watching the little bit turtles come up on the shore to lay their eggs. It's something that people come from England, from the UK, from Europe. They come to the Caribbean so that they can see the leatherback turtles laying their eggs, right? And that is an income to those Caribbean folks. And so, the high seas, while it is abstract and we're not seeing it, it is so integral to trade, to medicine, to a number of livelihoods, because we're also so interconnected.
Very, very much so, Leneka. Thank you for reinforcing that. And I think that all of this, that's kind of why I put this climate Venn diagram link in the chat. If you have a chance to check that out, I highly recommend it. It's all about, figuring out, and this will lead us into our next set of questions here, because I see a through line here. A lot of you are interested in the same things in the Q&A here. It's all about finding what you in your life are you good at? What do you like to do? What brings you joy? And then what is needed in the world? What are the actions that need to be taken on this specific issue? And then what do you actually have the capacity for in your life? Like, if you can be a musician and contribute positively to this movement, because you can make, songs and music about this. You can make art about this. We need photographers, we need writers, we need all of these different interdisciplinary actions. And it is all about reinforcing those connection points like Leneka was talking about. And so I do want to we have like 4 more minutes. So there's a couple of very similar questions in here. There's the second part of Eduardo's question from before. What tools or resources do you recommend to young people to take action? We also have Layla's question, what can young people do to encourage our country to ratify this treaty? And then we also have an anonymous, other than learning about the matter and posting on social media. So other than education and communication, how can we engage more closely? So do you guys have any kind of final thoughts on that stuff? Like, where can we go to find these resources? Yes. Where can we go to actually find how to take these other types of actions? Leneka, go ahead. Ooh, Leneka, I can just barely hear you. I think your microphone might be
okay, can you hear me better now?
Yes, yeah, you're good now.
Okay, so sorry about that.
You're all good.
So you can visit the highseasalliance.org website. I'll probably post it in the chat. And there are a lot of resources on our website that can give you more information about the high seas. In fact, we have a youth ambassador program, even though there's not an open call now. If you are interested, I'll also leave my email address and see how best I can involve you in the work of the High Seas Alliance, because we will not ever turn you away if you want to support the promulgation or the promotion of the BBNJ. And lastly, I would say, what else can young people do other than posting on social media? You can write letters to your government, ask questions. Why is it that we haven't signed or ratified the BBNJ treaty as yet? Find out what it is that they need. And if they do need support in terms of doing a policy brief or writing up a cabinet submission, or they need a working team of experts to do a cross-sectional analysis to see, to present some points as to why they should ratify, then you can always, of course, reach out to us at the ICs Alliance again, because we are providing that kind of support for countries to sign, for countries to ratify, and subsequently implement the BBNJ.
Thank you, Leneka. Julia, do you have anything else to add as well?
Actually, she was brilliant. I think I don't have anything to add.
Perfect. Yeah, and I see Asaba also asked, what more do NGOs have to do with this treaty being recognized? Again, going back to the same thing that Leneka just said that we can do on personal levels. You can join organizations and do that in a group setting as well, writing letters, saying thank you to those who have already ratified, and asking questions why those haven't ratified it yet. And then I also see another question by Adebayo, a recording artist. A lot of songs is looking for a platform to share their work anywhere on social media, I think is, and same thing for anybody else who is creating these types of materials and resources and just action components that are inspiring to people. Clea, I saw you had your hand raised. You have something to add?
Actually, I thought, but I think we don't have time anymore, but that's okay. That's perfect. I also gave my email so we can continue the conversation later.
Perfect. Yes, thank you, Julia, for that. And again, same deal, Leneka and Julia, I really, really appreciate you putting your email out there. You are all welcome to send me an email. I'll write mine in the chat in just a moment. But you are right, we are at the top of the hour, so I do want to go head to our announcements. The most exciting one being that the application to join the World Ocean Day Youth Advisory Council is open, and the deadline to apply is Monday, the 5th of August. So if you are between the ages of 16 and 23 anywhere in the world, and you are already working on ocean and climate action in your local community, we want to hear from you. I will send this link in the chat so you can find out more. There we go. And then the other announcement is that we will be back with our regular 4-week sessions of youth advocacy training in mid-October, early November. We are working on that schedule right now, and those exact dates will be announced very, very soon. So I highly recommend that you subscribe to the Rising Network or Rising Blue Network newsletter, which is our monthly youth newsletter that shares dozens of different events and opportunities for young people all around the world. Definitely recommend. It's a great resource. But on that note, again, huge thank you to Julia and Leneka. I really, really appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy schedules on a weekend, especially, to join us for this conversation. I loved this discussion. I'm feeling very inspired, very hopeful, and excited for the future. And I hope that all of our audiences too. But yeah, thank you guys again, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, Leneka and Laura.
Thank you all so much. Bye-bye.